and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the MrWarrenHayes Show. I am the one, the only, thank God, MrWarrenHayes, and I want to welcome all of you tonight here for another great podcast where we are going to talk about professional wrestling right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. I'm already confusing. Look, I'm telling you guys, I've been mentioning it for weeks now. This is the onset of the stroke. This is some long-term storytelling that I've got going here. And eventually, it'll happen, and it'll happen right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes on a Thursday night where we record live, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. Thank you very much for joining us live here on the YouTube channel. I appreciate it. For being here, thank you for your likes. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcast application, thank you all so much. I appreciate it a great deal. Consider showing some love there as well. A review, a 5-star review. You can leave 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify as well. You can leave a nice little 5-star review there. And again, Spotify, the cool thing is that you can flip between audio and video. You can get both. You can actually get to see my face on Spotify. And again, you think about it and you're like, look, John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats, right? Uber talented singer-songwriter, a guy who is at the very basis of the maintaining of the folk tradition of literacy in songwriting in America. I'm a big fan of the Mountain Goats. You can't see anything of John. You can't see John Darnielle perform on Spotify. You can't. You can listen to his music, which is fantastic, but you can't see him. You can't see him. You can see the MrWarrenHayes, which therefore makes me even more of a hipster than him, if you ask me, right? Because I'm a little more at the forefront. That kind. I'm just throwing that out there. Again, another superstar, another well-known commodity that you can't see, but you can. I'm there on Spotify. Video. I'm there. Nice to see you. Yeah. So, but look, 5-star reviews everywhere. Just leave them. Mucho apreciado, which is absolutely not how you say it in Spanish. I don't know how you'd say that in Spanish, though. I don't know. Hey, Google, how do you say much appreciated in Spanish?
In Spanish, that's muy apreciado.
Muy apreciado. I wasn't close. I was close. Muy apreciado. I was close. Anyway, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you. Don't forget also to head on over to Bell to Bells. You guys know this by now. Women's Wrestling Wire, women's wrestling. That's where it happens. BellToBells.com. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/BellToBells, or on Twitter at BellToBells, BellToBells.com. I don't know what I was doing. Hand gestures. There you go. That's what I'm doing. Voguing is what it's called, or what was it? It was used to be called voguing back in the 90s. It was Madonna who made that a thing. Everyone would vogue, thanks to that song Vogue. Let your body move to the music. Was it just move to the music, or was it groove? I don't think it was groove. I don't think Madonna grooved. She would move, but she wouldn't groove. I don't think Madonna was much of a groover. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know what I'm saying. So I hope you guys are. Oh boy. AEW Revolution is this weekend, and I've already recorded, and it's out there, my AEW Revolution podcast for the preview of the pay-per-view. What a roundabout way to get to something very simple. It's out there. It's on podcast platforms everywhere. It's on YouTube as well. I was joined by Pluggo and Njpw Jr. from Beyond Two Beards over there on Love Wrestling, and it was a lot of fun. It was a blast to have both of those guys. Those guys, absolutely. just a great time. And we ran through all our predictions. So take the time to check that out. That's available right here. Again, wherever you're listening to this. Don't forget to join the Discord. Okay, that's important. Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description. Come on in. Come join us. And this weekend, here's the thing. Here's the cool thing. This is what I like about the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. It's a great community. A lot of people who hang out in the chat are there, and also some people who are just there, and vice versa. But here's the thing. Here's what's really cool. Oh, hey, Evan Wright, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Here's the cool thing about the Discord is that sometimes the community then decides, they're like, hey, we're going to do an event. We're going to create an event, and tomorrow Evan, just turns out that he's here, is going to be hosting a stage event, which is basically like, the spaces on Twitter and all that stuff. Basically a roundtable event to hype up Revolution, to talk about it, get the predictions and comments from the community. So anyone wants to pop in can jump in. Evan moderates, brings people on, everyone talks, and it's a nice time. So come and join us. We're probably going to be doing it this Saturday. But you know what? The best thing, if you don't want to miss it, just become a member of the community, the Discord community. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. We like fun. So there you go. Also, I've got t-shirts over on whatamaneuver.net. Don't forget that. And also, I've got the members only stream, which happens now every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central. We are going to be most likely chatting up AEW Revolution just between us members. So if you want to pop in, you can join us live in the chat. We take Discord calls as well, so you can actually pop in and we'll chit chat. I'll get your thoughts, your opinions, and all you have to do is become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. So it's also a great way to show some support for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel as well. Plus, you also can show some support by dropping a super chat, which I will read live and on the air. Question, comment, thought, mood, whatever. And look at the Nick Nutter in the chat. This isn't a super chat, but look, the Nick Nutter picked up on why I spoke about the Mountain Goats and John Darnielle, because he says, and quote, Mountain Goats is another wrestling connection. They did a song about Chavo Guerrero Sr. That is correct. And not only Chavo Guerrero, but Sasha Banks as well. John Darnielle, and a legitimate treasure of a human being, also happens to be a pro wrestling fan. And we're going to sip on that. All right, well, okay, let's get to it. Well, okay, before we actually get to it, got to keep up my New Year's resolution. It's going well, I think. Here we go. Another nice thing to say about Bill Goldberg.
Warren Hayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
Well, Goldberg has never met a locker that he didn't want to headbutt.
Warren Hayes has 52 nice things to say about Goldberg.
The more the weeks go on, the harder they become. Anyway. Weekly wrestling inspection, anyone? I think tonight we should start by talking about, I think tonight I should start talking about WrestleMania, right? And do you know why I figured tonight was a good moment to start talking about WrestleMania? Because I think today, if I'm not mistaken, marks 30 days. There's literally a month. We're 30 days away from the most stupendous wrestling event to have graced our eyeballs, our linear eyeballs within. I don't know. But I think it is. I think today is 30 days. So I'm like, okay. When I saw that, I was like, okay, so where are we at? Because look, I've been, I'm maybe not as invested. Let's put it that way, in the WWE product on a weekly basis, right? So apologies if there's some things that are that slip out of my out of my eyesight. I saw Finn Balor winning the U.S. title this week. If there's stuff that happens that gets the timeline excited, I'll go take a look at it. Yes, I saw Tommaso Ciampa in the singlet. We're good. We're fine. It's like all that stuff. That's cool. So so the first thing that I got interested in is like, okay, so where are we at when it comes to ticket sales? Because the AT&T Stadium, the AT&T Center, the AT&T Arena, the stadium, right? Is it AT&T Stadium? I know it's not an arena. I'm being facetious, but I think that's what it's called, right? Look, the place in Dallas that's hosting it, it has a huge capacity, right? It's like over 100,000 people can sit in the stadium, right? Night 1 of WrestleMania, as it stands, has 47,000 tickets sold. And night 2 has 50,000 tickets sold. Now, if you're asking me, now I find ticket sales much more interesting as a stat, as something to follow, than ratings. I think I really think that that following ticket sales, looking at ticket sales and how they're performing, that to me is much more telling. It's much more compelling than ratings for me, because it's tangible, right? Even if the 18 to 49s drop off of the third quarter hour, like, it doesn't matter, because if there are empty seats, the seats are going to stay empty. You know what I mean? So right now, even with both nights combined, they couldn't even fill one night of the AT&T Stadium. They couldn't even fill one night completely with the amount of tickets they've sold so far. And we're 30 days away. So that to me is, it's frightening. I'm not going to lie. I find it's a little scary. And just as a comparison, this same stadium was at WrestleMania 32. WrestleMania 32 was held in the same stadium, and they had over 101,000 fans in just one night. The place was virtually sold out. So I'm looking at this right now and I'm like, Jesus, this shit is terrible. Like, this is not good. And it's not as if, so look, so I'm like, what's going on with the card? It's like, I've seen the big matches. Look, this is what the card looks like so far. Okay? And chat, I want you to chime in here. I want you to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down in regards to the overall card. Would you pay money to go see either of these nights? Here's where we're at right now. Saturday, the first night, this is what we have set. The main event, SmackDown Women's Championship, Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. Raw Women's Championship, Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Rey and Dominic Mysterio versus The Miz and Logan Paul. And Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin. That's your top of the second hour main event, top of the second hour SmackDown match right there, but on a WrestleMania card. And as for night 2, what we have booked is the winner take all championship unification match, WWE champion Brock Lesnar versus Universal champion Roman Reigns. And that's all we have announced for Sunday. And Sunday has more tickets sold than the Saturday, which is wild. Needle mover Roman. There's 2 matches that have been announced but haven't been slotted yet. We're talking about AJ Styles versus Edge, which, objectively speaking, is the most interesting match I've seen on this entire card so far. I'm legitimately compelled to watch this match. And we also have the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Carmella and Zelina Vega, defending against Sasha Banks and Naomi. That's what we got. So in the chat, we've already got like nopes and thumbs downs. I paid $2 for this. Like, I'm not wrong in thinking that WWE is a little bit the architect of its own misfortune here, right? Because it kind of stinks. The card stinks. It's kind of it's boring. You're kidding me, right? Rey and Dominic Mysterio versus The Miz and Logan Paul. Like, you can say celebrity match all you want at me. This is a SmackDown match, and I know there's stuff that hasn't been announced, but that we see coming, right? We see Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn happening, right? But that hasn't been. It's neither here nor there. There's still 30 days, but like, I look at this and I'm like, of course we're at 50% ticket sales done, because there's nothing here. I want to know who. I have not seen anyone tell me unironically, yes, I am stoked to watch Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. That's the match I wanted. I've seen no one say that. No one. And I myself don't want to see it. And y'all know I love Charlotte. I think Charlotte's great. I am not in the Charlotte hater army. Absolutely not. I think a lot of people get worked by Charlotte, don't realize they're getting worked. I love Charlotte. I think she's great. Ronda Rousey stinks. Eric Bischoff this week on his podcast was like I don't think Ronda Rousey seems to be happy to be there. I was like, you don't say, Eric. But the point is that I don't want. I kind of want WrestleMania to work. I want WrestleMania to be a big deal, because it is a big deal, and it's a big deal. You know why it's a big deal? Because it's a big deal for the wrestling industry now. It's not just a big deal for WWE. The entire business converges on whatever town WWE is running the show, and they set up shop. And you've got shows on top of shows. You've got all sorts of indie promotions. You've got, of course, you've got the GCW shows, that the entire collective during WrestleMania weekend that's happening there as well. You've got all sorts of stuff in the days beforehand. You even have this year some of the higher profile Texas indies that are coming together to create a super show. Now that's exciting. And that kind of stuff wouldn't be possible, not that it wouldn't be possible, but it would be more difficult to get people towards and get people excited for, because thanks to, it would be a lot more difficult to get people to and put it together if it wasn't for the fact that there were already thousands of wrestling fans converging onto WrestleMania weekend. Because for a lot of people, whether you're into WWE or not, WrestleMania is still like WrestleMania's. It's the Super Bowl. It's Christmas. You don't root either for the Rams or the Bengals. You just want to be at the biggest football event of the year. You go. It's the same thing with WrestleMania. So it's the kind of thing that bothers me when I see that, because I think of the larger scope of the industry. If WrestleMania start to draw less and are less interesting, it will have the effects on that will trickle down, right? They won't be as great. But look, 30 days in, halfway there, we've got Logan Paul, as far on the crowd. Then we have Johnny Knoxville, Pat McAfee was announced today, of course, you know. And I mean, there's a lot of non-wrestling entities in this, and it's WrestleMania. This stuff always happens, but I would even go as far as to argue that Ronda is a non-WWE entity, because look, if we're talking context here, Ronda doesn't want to be here. Ronda doesn't give a shit. She doesn't care. She came in just in time to get her Saudi show money, and now she's going to work the main event, and she'll walk away with a big fat paycheck. And here's the thing, and here's something else that I read, getting all this stuff together for tonight. Apparently, and this is off of this is coming from the Wrestling Observer, WWE doesn't believe that it's feasible in the modern environment to only have one championship. Therefore, the title unification plans are a little up in the air here. Let me read the article. This is the wildest WWE, but also most classic WWE shit here. By the way, Sean Williams, Heather, nice to see you. Welcome. But check this out here. WWE Champion Brock Lesnar and Universal Champion Roman Reigns are set to face off in a winner-take-all championship unification match at WrestleMania 38. But it doesn't appear that WWE will only have one men's world champion for long. Dave Meltzer noted on Sunday's Wrestling Observer Radio that he's been told WWE does not believe it is feasible in the modern environment to have one champion for both Raw and SmackDown. Here's Dave's quote. The deal here is that it is a unification match. From what I'm told, it's the same idea as the last time they unified the titles. Remember like 20 years ago, 18 years ago, when they did, and then like a week later, they just handed a belt to Triple H? I'm told that it is not feasible, in the modern environment to not have each brand, given the two networks, have a champion. So this would be a unification match, and then they will not forget about it, but there will be two champions. So isn't this like the most WWE thing to do? Is like to make this big deal out of this one big match. This one thing is like, we're unifying the titles. And then a week later, they might just pull off a belt swap like Becky and Charlotte did, like the New Day and the Street Profits did. Just like, whoop, there's precedent. They've done it before. Why wouldn't they do it now? It's wild to me. You know what they want? They want the shots. They want the camera work. They want the pictures of either Brock or Roman holding two belts at once, and then they're good. Because that's what they want. Because that's what WWE wants. We've talked about this. What was it last week when I was talking about Nikita Lyons, or 2 weeks ago? Who talks about the matches in WWE in the aftermath? It's always about the moments. It's always about, oh, this great moment, and that's what WWE wants. That's what they're in. That's the business they're in. Making moments, creating moments. The matches are they're a means to an end. They're a problem, essentially. You know, it's like if they could create WrestleMania moments without having wrestling matches, that'd be great. That would be great. They do it. They do it in a heartbeat. And then they're going to create this moment. They're going to have Roman or Brock hold both belts, and then in a couple of weeks, everything will be back to normal. Or back to how it is. So I was anticipating at first that they were going to do a brand split. That they were going to do away with the brand split, which is something that I have no confidence in. But I was like, the brand split isn't necessarily working either. But it turns out probably not. Here's a little something that I don't want to hope. Look, I'm crossing my fingers, right? But every time I say I don't want to spend too much time on it, next thing you know, I'm on a 20-minute rant. You guys know how I am. Pat McAfee welcomed Vince McMahon on his program today, as I'm recording this on the Thursday. He was there. Now, I'm probably going to be the only podcast that's not going to spend an exorbitant amount of time breaking down what he said and going through every specific detail, because I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters, because nothing of significance was spoken in that interview. And I don't think anyone I wasn't expecting a hard-hitting interview, of course not. You have WWE employee Pat McAfee interviewing his boss. He's not going to try and corner him. This isn't Vince McMahon versus Bob Costas. You know what I mean? Versus Phil Mushnick. What I'm most disappointed in, because I didn't expect the interview to be, like I said, revelatory. Was anything going that there was going to be anything, some hard questions that Vince was going to be pressed? Like I wasn't expecting any of that. What I was expecting was an angle. That I completely, Vince is late. Oh, it's a work. Because he came in late on the show and was like, oh, it's a work. He's in the green room. There's something that's going to happen. I was convinced they were setting something up with Vince and Pat for WrestleMania. Give some smoke and mirrors that Vince is going to fight, but ultimately it's going to be Austin Theory, right? When I listen to Vince McMahon, this is ultimately my takeaway, and y'all can do what you want with it. Vape Ross Vape, good to see you. When I listen to Vince talk about himself and what he's done, I always wonder who he's trying to convince. Is he really trying to convince us? Or is he trying to convince himself that what he's doing is this? Vince McMahon has always wanted to sit at the big boys table, right? He has always had a very contentious relationship with pro wrestling. That's why he transformed it and he made WrestleMania like a gala affair. He gets Liberace, he gets the Rockettes, he gets Mr. T. He's like, pro wrestling isn't a mud show anymore. It's not something, that happens in school gymnasiums that, anymore. It's like, we've got Madison Square Garden. I've got the Radio City Music Hall Rockettes who are here doing their thing. Like, wrestling is a big deal because he always wanted to be in entertainment, and he perceived pro wrestling as his way to get in there. And I'm not making this shit up. Because you can look at his patterns of behavior. You can look at everything that's been documented throughout the years in regards to Vince. If you take the time to read books, if you take the time to research a couple of articles, you will come to the exact same conclusions. I'm not coming at you with some hot takes here, but I also appreciate that there's many, many new fans out there. People who who saw this interview with Vince McMahon and their brain was melting, and I was like, okay, so clearly, that you've never been exposed to a Vince McMahon interview before, and I'm not saying that condescendingly. It's a realization on my part. Whereas I don't want to get all snooty and gatekeepy because it doesn't serve a purpose here. I understand that there might be people who don't quite get the scope of Vince McMahon, but Vince wanted to elevate himself above pro wrestling, right? He wanted to make movies. Remember that? WWE Studios, when that started up? The Kane movies, right? Hear no evil, see no evil, smell no evil, taste no evil. I don't remember. The Marine. Remember all of those? That awful Triple H movie? But that's what he wanted, right? Wanted to make movies. He wanted to entertain people, right? And in that infamous interview, in the infamous, pro wrestling is fixed promo that he cut, right? He says, we're like a soap opera. He wanted to be a real sports general manager. Remember right when he started the XFL? No more of this funny business, of kayfabe and storylines. Like, no. I'm going to actually be a real deal number one league owner, just like Gary Bettman of the NHL. Is he the... I don't know. But this is what he wanted. When I can absolutely see Vince McMahon going to his billionaire clubs, or maybe at that time his millionaire clubs, hanging out with all the other millionaires with their legitimate businesses and their entertainment empires, whatnot, and then all of them like having a scoff at Vince, yeah, but you do wrestling, I create high art, I'm the president of Miramax. Yeah, but it's that kind, and I'm convinced that that's the kind of thing that egged him on, that pissed him off, that made him angry. Because guys like Ted Turner wouldn't give him the light of day. He said in his interview today, it's business, it's not personal. And you're going to get me to believe that his feud with Ted Turner was business? That it wasn't personal? Come on. He wanted to be anything but a lowly wrestling promoter, and yet every bit of success that he has had over his lifetime has been associated with wrestling, and he hates pro wrestling. He said it in the interview today. You could either be a pro wrestler or you can be a WWE superstar. So when he sits there with Pat and he's talking about the differences between pro wrestlers and WWE superstars, and when he starts talking about how sport, the concept of sports entertainment versus wrestling, and why WrestleMania still has wrestling in it when it's sports entertainment, and over the years, when he talk about how a WWE superstar can do it all, they can act, they can perform, they can sing, they can do comedy. Who is he trying to convince? He has spent years convincing himself that what he's doing is not wrestling. So every time he sits there and he says, we're creative, we have a team, he's delusional. WWE is a one-man show. It always has been one-man show. It's Vince. That's not what a team is. You can have followers, sycophants. You can have toadies, lackeys. You can have employees, but that doesn't make you a team. He said in the interview, I'm wired differently, which is true, which is absolutely true. Vince McMahon never took a vacation, never took a day off. He has been working every day of his life since the 70s, when he started working for his dad. He has never stopped, and he's never stopped for family. He's never stopped for pride. He just kept on going. And you hear about it. You hear about his crazy regime where he works till 2 a.m., then hits the gym till 3, then he goes to bed, and he's back up at 6. That is insane, folks. He is absolutely wired differently. And yet, this is an environment in which people are expected to emulate, not necessarily copy or do the same, but put in that kind of passion. Why would anyone put that same level of passion into something that is entirely not theirs? If Vince wants to do it, that's fine, but it's insane. And his family has suffered for it. I saw today Stephanie McMahon tweet out when she was while Vince was on the podcast, retweet something and say, great to see Vince on Pat McAfee. I'm like, Vince, he's your dad. Not a, hey, great to see you, good job, Dad, nothing, because that's not the relationship that he has with his children. He is absolutely wired differently. He's wired in a sense that he only perceives his own stuff. His own vision. And that's all that matters to him. Because his greatest accomplishments in life have been done, I'll say it again, with him by doing something he hates. He's a wrestling promoter. He has always been a wrestling promoter. He wanted to distance himself from the smaller territories, from the carnies, from the backstabbing and all that bullshit, and yet he ended up doing the exact same thing, and in many times worse, covering up murders, covering up pedophilia within his company, covering up a whole bunch of different shit, plus backstabbing people right and left, buying out territories, being anti-competitive. He is exactly what he hates. It's what brought him to where he is. And he's still doing it today, except he's doing it on a whole other level with billions of dollars now and with a global reach. So don't get fooled when he sits there and he seems so affable and charming. Because you always hear these stories about how Vince will say one thing to your face, he'll be super nice and charming and so on and so forth. And the next thing you know, you don't know what, oh, I've been cut because I'm dead weight, apparently. But what happened in the interview today, what he did with Pat McAfee, is more carny bullshit. And him continuing to convince himself that he is on a whole other level, that what he does is not this lowly pro wrestling stuff, that he is doing far greater things. That time of year, touched on it last week, the New Japan Cup is here. It's with us! The New Japan Cup, 48,000 people are in this tournament. There's so many people. The first night happened last night or 2 nights ago, something like that. 2 nights ago. No, last night. No, the night before. I'm all confused. Look, but the important thing here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the night one of the New Japan Cup began, and I'm excited for it. And per usual, when New Japan starts off, its tournaments starts off with a bang. Starts off with a good show. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pull up my New Japan bracket here so that y'all can see it with me. These are my predictions. I officially went with my predictions here. So everything is laid out. And again, I'm not going to go necessarily into detail. I gave my overall predictions last week. Well, at least for my for the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, which I think is more interesting than actually going into detail in a lot of things here, because I feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of matchups here, or potential matchups that are very, very obvious in the result, right? But we did have night one happen, and I thought it was a good night of wrestling. I thought there was more than enough good stuff as opposed to bad. Didn't blow me away, but a solid night of pro wrestling. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, we had Shima taking on Taka Michinoku. That's what opened the match. Shima, of course, hanging around New Japan these days with his strong hearts, moving all over the place from GLEAT to Noah. I don't even know if Oriental Wrestling Entertainment, OWE, right? I don't even know if that's still around. That was the promotion that had started up with a partnership with AEW. We remember, like in 2019, right? We remember that. I don't even know if that's still around. Shima here looked fantastic, and I thought this was a great opening match. Went about, I'd say, 10, 11 minutes. just lots of grappling between them both. Shima is still in fantastic shape. He looks really, really good. Some really good stuff by him. Super explosive as opposed to Taka Michinoku, who, you know, age and whatnot. You know, I think he's settled more into a grounded style, which is fine because Shima was able to compete with him on that. He wins with the Meteora, so that was really cool. Good match to start things off. Hanma happened next versus Yoshihashi. Again, this was no big surprise here. Yoshihashi came out with a win here. And Yoshihashi, our boy, looking very dominant. Lots of striking. It's a blockbuster. He kicks out of a diving headbutt. Again, I don't understand why Hanma, whose career was put on ice, who was told you will never wrestle again because of all the damage you've done to your neck. I don't know why he still does diving headbutts. I think he's ridiculous. Anyway, Yoshihashi wins with karma. Fine little match. That was all right. Hiroki Goto defeated Yuji Nagata as well. And this one's a fight. I dug it because it was a Yuji Nagata match. And Yuji was like, nah, I'm just kicking the shit out of you, Goto, this time around. And he works Goto's arm throughout this match with kicks as well. Goto, of course, does his usual own series of kicks. Running Bulldog as well. Nagata hits a superplex as well. The Shiname as well by Yuji Nagata, you know, where his eyes roll back into his head. He got that in too. And Goto he applies a grapevine to Yuji Nagata's legs and then cradles him back for the win. Great stuff. I thought it was great stuff. Very very strong match. This, to me, this is the match that over-delivered. Because I wasn't expecting it to be really this good. Despite the fact Nagata can still go, he's fine. Goto, I think, still has some good stuff in him as well. This was the match that over-delivered to me. Jeff Cobb defeated Togi Makabe. The most impressive part of this match was unquestionably Jeff Cobb tossing Togi Makabe around. Togi Makabe he's not a cruiserweight. He's not a junior heavyweight. He's a big dude. You know, I get it. He's a New Japan dad, you know, but he's not a small guy. He is absolutely not a small guy. So when you see Cobb tossing him around, you're like, holy shit. There's some good stuff here. Just throwing him around in the ring. Ends with a tour of the islands. It was good. Strong match, of course. You know, setting up Cobb to look very, very strong, very dominant throughout it all. Which is, of course, what you want. You want Jeff Cobb to look strong and dominant. Why wouldn't you? Toru Yano versus Taichi was like the quintessential Yano match, and I'm usually a fan of what Yano does, but this was completely unnecessary. There were big blue sacks were involved. Like, it's fine. It's let's just get on with, like, Yano's eliminated. Taichi got the win after a huge strike. It's just like Yano had a big blue bag and he was draping it over the ref and draping it over Taichi, and then Taichi draped it over Yano, and I'm like, all right. Like, I don't know what it is. Are they trying too hard with Yano? Like, I think that there's too much gimmickry, and there was a time where Yano's nonsense. There was a time where Yano's nonsense was, I guess, a little more subtle, a little more. It wasn't dependent on props so much, you know, where he'd be sneaky. Now it's like whatever garbage he can bring to the ring, you know, it's the tape and it's all. I feel like it's like he's turned into a Gallagher. It's prop comedy. I'm like, meh. I was excited for it to finish, and I'm glad it's done, and we don't have to talk about it ever again. Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Pimp, took on Tetsuya Naito, former tag team partners back when they were in the junior division together. I thought this was a pretty good match. I was talking about it earlier today in the Discord. I have trouble getting into Yujiro matches because Yujiro is Yujiro at this point. He doesn't do anything for me, and I like whatever he gets into it. I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to get anything compelling to come out of it. I thought it was fine. Don't get me wrong. This is a solid, I'd say, if you want to talk star ratings, 3.25. Like, it was well fought. It was a smart match. Some good stuff in it. And Naito hits a beautiful Esperanza, but I mean a beautiful one. And like even Kevin Kelly was like, he hasn't hit such a nice one in years, kind of thing. Like he's semi burying every other time he's done it. It was actually really good. Yujiro hits a Miami Shine. There's a lot of strikes here. There's a ref bump, of course. Then comes the House of Torture. The House of Torture runs in, and they start beating down. When I say they, I mean Evil and Show. And they start beating up on him, and it's a shame, and I'm sort of pissed off. But they sort of lift him. They lift Naito up, but then Yujiro is sort of like, no, you guys go away. I want to fight him one-on-one. And I'm like, okay. A little wrinkle here, a little callback to the history, a little something, Yujiro wants to prove himself. And commentary did a good job setting this moment up because they were talking about how Yujiro and Naito had similar paths, but, not everyone can be an A+ player. And Yujiro had to, come to grips with the fact that Naito was going to be the successful one. Excuse me, that Naito was going to be the successful one and he was going to be sort of left behind kind of thing, so all led up to this, and it's like, oh, well, that's cool. Yujiro has something to prove. That's pretty dope. But then as so the House of Torture guys leave, they get out of the ring and they're sort of looking at Yujiro and they're like, okay, whatever, we're just here to help. What are you doing? And then once they're out of the ring and Yujiro's alone with Naito, he low blows Naito. So it's just one big swerve. There's no honor. His pimp stick gets thrown in so that Naito can use it. But Naito low blows our boy Yujiro and does a matchbook cover for the win. Evil after runs into the ring and tries to go after Naito, but Naito even low blows Evil. Because the one important part, and this was emphasized, I'll give it a second. So Naito advances, Yujiro's out of here, thank God. And after the match, and this was funny, because the ref was dead, essentially, or the ref was gone, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the ref wasn't around, and Naito wanted his wrist, he wanted his arm raised. So he's pointing his wrist to Jushin Thunder Liger, who does commentary on the Japanese side, right? And he's like, Liger! He's like, Liger! Come lift my wrist. And Liger's like, I don't trust this guy. And of course, like, you don't trust Tetsuya Naito. You don't. Like Kevin Kelly said, he's a rudo at heart. That's what he is. So he goes. So Liger eventually is like, all right, and he unplugs his headset from the, and he still has it on, and he goes to the ring, and he gets into the ring with Naito. Naito's like this. He extends his arm. Liger grabs the wrist, and he goes to raise it, but Naito just slips out of the ring as he does it. And I'm like, that was fantastic. That was my favorite part of that match. That was and Liger. I don't know if it was planned or not, but Liger's sort of like, oh, you son of a bitch. And he grabs a chair and he's like, oh, I'm gonna, kind of thing. And Naito is just Naito came out of night 1 of New Japan, of the New Japan Cup with a win and on top of the world because he single-handedly, because he won his match, despite the shenanigans, he single-handedly took care of all of the House of Tacha, and he ribbed Jushin Thunder Liger. What more do you want from a post-match? Fantastic shit. Pluggo, good to see you, sir. Welcome to the chat. And then our main event, we had Kazuchika Okada versus El Desperado. Now, for some particular reason, there's a lot of people who were surprised at the performance that Desperado put on. It's like, wow, how good is he? And all I can say is these are people who haven't been paying attention to the past 18 months of Despi's career, where he has been just absolutely fantastic. Flowman has become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Thank you, Flowman. I appreciate the support. So, of course, what you have here are 2 champions. You have your heavyweight, your junior heavyweight champion. And in these circumstances, look, the weight classes are meaningful in New Japan, right? The New Japan Cup this year, it's an open weight. So everyone join, regardless of the weight class, it's an open weight tournament. Everyone is in there. But, I don't think anyone sat here saying, you know what, Despi might have a chance. Especially not against Kazuchika Okada, who is in full on Rainmaker mode. Like, there's no way he stood a chance. But Jesus Christ, what a journey to get there. Like I like to tell you guys, sometimes wrestling is okay if it's predictable. That's not the problem. If the outcomes are predictable, that's all right. It happens. Because most of the time, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. And here, the journey was absolutely, absolutely brilliant. Where you had Kazuchika Okada, semi-cocky, semi-arrogant. It's like, I'm the big guy here. With Despi, making light of his height difference with Okada. There's practically an entire head difference between them both. He's like, come on. And Okada's very confident at first, but then Desperado starts working the knee, which is going to be a story. It has been a story. Tetsuya Naito was in his last program with Okada was working the knees. The knees are going to be a problem for Okada moving forward in this tournament. Well, Despi used them to his advantage here. And boy, did he ever. Grapevining. He did this great moment where he grapevines the legs and he sits on them, right? Which is fantastic. So, and he's facing Okada and Okada's lying on his back. So Okada, when he'd come up to strike, like to forearm Despi would take the shot, but then fall back, which would put more torque on the grapevine, and Okada would be like, motherfucker! Well, that's not what he'd say, but that's the sentiment. And I was like, this is great shit, because it also works perfectly in El Desperado's character, where he just likes to nag. He just likes to pick and nag and infuriate his opponents, right? It's just such good stuff. I mean, I'm looking at my notes here and I'm trying to pick out, like, there's so many great things. Despi runs the ropes and so does Okada. Okada runs in to do his running drop kick, right? But out of the air, El Desperado just grabs him and dragon screw leg whips him right out of the air. I'm like, Jesus. That's fantastic. And then he leads into numero dos, which is the stretch muffler thing. So he's working on his finisher is the knee. And Okada fights really hard to get out of it. And when he does, he locks on the money clip because he has to take a breath. Okada has to regain his senses. He's like, this is insane. What's going on? So he locks in the money clip. And then there's another great, fantastic moment where, from this money clip, Despy seems to pass out, right? But the referee doesn't call it, and Okada just lets him go before the referee calls it. But he's hanging on to wrist control. He holds on to wrist control, and he's egging Desperado to get back up. He's like, get up, get up. Which he eventually does. And the fight continues, and El Desperado hits a Pinche Loco, goes for a second one, but Okada reverses out into a landslide, but Despy wriggles out of it, and then he punches him, but he can't avoid the inevitable. Drop kick, landslide, Rainmaker. It's done. Fantastic match. Go out of your way to see this match. This is a good one. It is a top tier, absolute barn burner. And if anyone is like, El Desperado, isn't he kind of... No, he's not. He's fantastic, and he's been fantastic for a long time. Of course, you can always argue, well, he was wrestling Okada. Sure, you wrestle one of the best in the world. Okada could probably get a 2-star match out of me. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to a -3. That's my point. Fantastic match. Go check it out. Good start to the New Japan Cup. Diego Rafael Solis Rivera. Welcome to the chat, brother. Nice to see you. So if we talk... So right now, next round moving forward, we've got Okada versus Master Wato. We've got Taichi versus Hiroyoshi Tenzan, which should actually... No, Tenzan is he's injured. He's not there. So I don't know exactly if Taichi gets a bye. Probably, because I don't think they replaced anyone. So Taichi gets a bye here because Tenzan's been is injured out of the tournament. Hiroki Goto is going to take on Dick Togo, and I mean, come on. And Shima is going to take on Yoshinobu Kanemaru, which should be a lot of fun. And as you can tell here, if you're looking at my setup on my brackets, I think Shima is going to go rather far because I think New Japan going forward here is going to try to hit us with some fresh matches. Okada El Desperado was their first singles match ever. They had wrestled once for the King of Pro Wrestling inaugural title, which was in 2021 at this point. Feels like forever when they wrestled in the empty baseball stadium. You remember that? So that's going to be... that was a fresh match. Okada versus Shima? Yeah, absolutely sign me up for that. And that is, if I'm Gedo and I'm booking for this tournament, that's a match I'm going for. That is an exciting quarterfinal match. Because Okada is going to the finals. What the fuck are you talking about? There's no way this New Japan Cup goes the distance without Okada being there. Come on. So I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. But again, a great first night. But like I said, that's usually what New Japan does. They just start off with a good first night of their tournament. It was a good wrestling show, capped off with a fantastic main event. And Tetsuya Naito getting one over Jushin Thunder Liger. Well, I don't know what else you want. Let's go ahead and talk about AEW. And I think before we actually start talking about the shows, we have to talk about the big news, the big announcement that Tony Khan had been promising us for a while now. A couple of weeks anyway. Tony Khan has purchased Ring of Honor Let me start over. Tony Khan has purchased Ring of Honor from the Sinclair Broadcast Group. That's right. He put out a press release, he being Tony Khan, on his own account, not from AEW. Let me read through a few paragraphs, not the whole thing, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't need. But it says that the video library, brand assets, intellectual property from independent professional wrestling's most prestigious promotion purchased. That's a hell of a lot of alliteration right there. Under new partnership with Tony Khan. Moments ago on AEW Dynamite live on TBS, it was announced that Tony Khan has agreed to acquire the assets of Ring of Honor Wrestling Entertainment LLC from Sinclair Broadcast Group, including the promotion's extensive video library dating back to 2002, brand assets, intellectual property, production equipment, and more. Known widely as the independent promotion that birthed some of wrestling's biggest stars today, including AEW CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, and highlighted dozens of members of the AEW roster, Ring of Honor's purchase signifies a new chapter in the future of professional wrestling as AEW's meteoric rise continues to draw the youngest skewing wrestling audience on television. Ring of Honor's influence on professional wrestling and modern professional wrestling is etched permanently in the history books, and this acquisition ensures that its legacy will be kept alive and treated with the utmost respect, said Tony Khan, CEO of AEW. If I'm going to start editorializing right here, I believe that. You know, in my shoot job, in what I do for a living, part of what I do is writing up press releases. So I'm familiar with how these things go. And usually, you know, these corporate boilerplate, quotes that you have to put in are usually that corporate boilerplate, a little boring, a little dull, and you're like, okay, whatever. But when Tony Khan talks about the fact that, you know, that its legacy will be kept alive and treated with the utmost respect, when he says that, I believe it, because Tony Khan is a wrestling fan. He's a message board dude. He is a legitimate wrestling fan. I am convinced that he had goosebumps at the idea of him being able to purchase Ring of Honor, because he said when he says he was a fan, he was a fan. There are photos of him out there at Final Battle. You know, it's like he's a guy who understands wrestling, who understands the business, he understands the history. So when he says that, I have a tendency to believe it. Here's an interesting, they quote this, but this quote is from Tony Khan, CEO of AEW, Chief Football Strategy Officer of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and GM/Sporting Director of Fulham FC. You see what they did there? Again, I'm telling you, like, as part of my expertise here, you have to trust me on this. They're pushing the fact here that, you know, Tony Khan is not like some, you know, wet behind the ears kind of, hey, you know, I've come out of nowhere to do this. He's got the experience. Look, he's the CEO of AEW, plus football strategy officer for the Jaguars, plus GM sporting director for Fulham FC. So he's like, oh, this guy's got a background. Like, he's not just like toying around with wrestling dolls. This guy goes. This deal adds thousands of hours of content to our rapidly. This is the another Tony Khan quote. A Tony quote. Tony quote. This deal adds thousands of hours of content to our rapidly growing library and creates new opportunities to expand our footprint on a national and global scale while having the potential to produce new content under the ROH banner. What are the key words we have to remember here, kids? What stuck out? What rang true in our ears here? What's the most important part of that quote right here? Adds thousands of hours of content to our rapidly growing library. This is it. That's it right there. That's crucial. Absolutely crucial. Of course, the tape library is important. I will immediately begin exploring opportunities to make ROH's video library available to fans will have the opportunity to witness the beginnings of the careers of some of AEW's biggest stars. And that's a big deal because a lot of people were talking about how the big announcement was going to be the announcement of a streaming service or AEW on HBO Max, which for some reason a lot of people think it's a done thing, it's a done deal. But you know, I don't know how much it is. Like I think it's important for AEW to be to have a significant content library, because here's the thing. As much as everyone gets excited over, you know, streaming services and so on and so forth, we are getting to a saturation point. We are getting to a moment where not only are people, you know, becoming very picky in regards to what streaming services they're going for, that they're going towards, but streaming services themselves are reaching a sort of are reaching a boiling point when it comes to the amount of content that they can offer versus the amount of content that's actually being consumed. Because even if you have, 600,000 hours of viewing content, which is probably insignificant. Like, I don't know what the numbers would be. You know, at what point do you as a distributor continue to pay to get more content onto your service when the people who are subscribed to your service aren't watching everything? And what if the portion of people who are subscribed to watch this one thing, such as AEW, how significant is it, you know, to actually constitute a real value add or to actually make real money for AEW? Because I think streaming services are going to start spending less and less and less for acquiring new content, because there's too much of an offer out there. And trust me when I tell you, already making productions for Netflix, most production companies who do things exclusively for Netflix do it at a loss, unless you're one of its flagship shows, like Stranger Things, for instance, or maybe Orange is the New Black back in the day. But a lot of these things are at, you know, very, very, Netflix picks up these shows at an extremely low cost. So production costs are already extremely low. There's a whole bunch of things that happen, which is why, you know, sometimes you're like, why did they cancel this show? It was doing so well on Netflix. Well, maybe everyone wanted a raise, maybe the actors wanted more money, and Netflix is like, we can't afford it because we have to buy 80 million hours of other content over here. I don't know if this is all making sense to you, but at some point this is what happens. And look, as a hardcore fan, I think it's exciting to have the opportunity to gain access to the Ring of Honor library and to have like easy access to it for sure. But I still have to wonder how much of a value it is to a streaming network when the WWE network had banked a lot on providing content from old school territory promotions, from WCW, from ECW. They have all these libraries, Smoky Mountain, so on and so forth. They banked a lot on those tape libraries. Everything is there, and yet the subscription base at some point plateaued. So I think that once you do get your hardcore fans into it, and I think they're there. And I think it sort of levels off after a while. It sort of plateaus where you're like, we saw the experience with the WWE network. To me, there's value to a certain degree, and it's such that it will bring in an initial number of new subscribers, but I don't think that an archive is what drives new subscriptions. I really don't. Otherwise, WWE wouldn't have sold to Peacock. That's what I think. That being said, though, there is something interesting to say. Well, let's say they go on HBO Max. Well, it's like, look, I'm going to subscribe to HBO Max. I'm going to have access to AEW's library, their pay-per-views, plus the Ring of Honor archive, and then I have all these other shows. I'll have Euphoria. I'll have the good seasons of Game of Thrones, and so on and so forth. And I think there's value in that, as opposed to a specific network. So maybe there's an argument to be made there, but I'm just wondering how much of a draw that is ultimately. But it's better for AEW to have a larger content library, because ultimately that's what matters. It's high levels of content, right? That's what you want if you're a company like AEW. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the press release, but the last line the last two lines I want to pull out here is: this acquisition will be completed through an entity that is wholly owned by Tony Khan. Further details about the extent of this acquisition will be announced in the upcoming weeks. So Ring of Honor is not owned by AEW, it is owned by Tony Khan. So that's really interesting. And I'm really excited to find out more details about it. Like are the Sinclair time slots still available? Like, how is Ring of Honor going to operate moving forward? I still think probably Ring of Honor should run monthly shows or weekend shows, maybe not weekend shows, but monthly shows, like a lot of indies do. One big show a month and you rebuild. Because I think there's a lot of rebuilding that has to happen in Ring of Honor right now. I think it's very interesting. But then we got some exclusive news over from Bodyslam.net from Cassidy Haynes, who was able to glean some news, some reports. You can consider this rumors. Cassidy has he's had a good track record. He's the guy who broke Bryan Danielson. The news of Ring of Honor, and this is directly from Body Slam. The news of Ring of Honor's purchase began to make the rounds last night, with the initial circle being very small. Not much was known about the specific details regarding Tony Khan's purchase of Ring of Honor. However, one source had stated to me that he heard it was in the $30 to $40 million range. If so, that is a bargain. That is a bargain. But he was unable to confirm with other sources. When asking around about the sale of Ring of Honor and plans for the company going forward, sources confirmed to me that the internal plans call for AEW to utilize Ring of Honor as a developmental territory of sorts. Additionally, it was said that main roster AEW talent would be dipping into the ROH brand on occasion. So, essentially, setting up an NXT proper to AEW's main roster, which makes perfect sense to me. Pick up those assets, you keep the world championship, so on and so forth, and the target. If you do that, it doesn't devalue your brand. And I've seen people get angry at this report, but I'm like, look, Ring of Honor was a distant fourth, if not fifth, promotion in North America over the past few years. Especially since AEW came out. WWE, AEW, GCW, Impact, Ring of Honor, by far. So if anything, a little revitalization, a little more interest, a little more, get the AEW faithful involved in this. Let's do it. Let's fucking go, man. So on those heels, here's the other little news bit. Oh, and by the way, just before I get into this news bit, keep one thing in mind. This is good news. Ring of Honor still being around, still plugging away. It is good news. The wrestling environment benefits from a healthy, thriving Ring of Honor. the ecosystem of pro wrestling in North America is tightly wound, and Ring of Honor fits a very, very, very specific place. Just like NWA does, just like MLW does, and now more and more GCW as well. More places for people to go work, get a paycheck, and elevate their game in a stature, in an area, under the shine of Ring of Honor, which is different from the one from the NWA, which is different from MLW's, which is different from GCW's. It benefits the talent. There's no reason to be mad, to get upset, to be. This is good. We'll see how it turns out, of course, but we are much better off with a strong, healthy, thriving Ring of Honor than one that just goes. So on the heels of all of that, on the heels of Ring of Honor perhaps being the developmental territory, Cassidy Haynes had another exclusive today. While asking around about the purchase of Ring of Honor, sources have also confirmed to me that the reports of Brandy and Cody Rhodes leaving AEW was very much real life and was not a work. Additionally, I was told that discussions had been ongoing between Cody and WWE, but I was told those conversations have since fizzled out. One source indicated that there is hope that Cody can be brought back into the AEW fold. The idea was floated to me that there might be a possibility again with a new role involving the Ring of Honor acquisition. Oh, Jesus! It is going to the discourse is going to be such shit, people. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. Well, this is pro wrestling. Okay? It's a business where people lie. They lie all the time. That's the history of wrestling. In wrestling, you lie. It boggles my mind to think that this would happen. Cody Rhodes coming back. Now, if he does come back, and Tony says, brother, Ring of Honor's yours. You drive it to whatever you want. It would be in line with a lot of reports that we heard that Cody wasn't necessarily unhappy with the money. That wasn't necessarily the money he wanted. You know, he felt like he had lost a lot of his creative control, of his booking power, you know, because Tony Khan basically took everything over as of January 2020. So Cody's like, so Tony's like, well, Cody, look, I can give you this shiny new toy that I just bought. And it could be yours. And you can do whatever you want with it. You answer to me, but you're the booker. Maybe Cody's like, all right. Because if Cody went to WWE and wanted, you know, oversight over his angles and bullshit like that, you know, I don't care what Vince told Pat McAfee. It didn't happen. He didn't get it. So much for the night after WrestleMania. The Raw after WrestleMania. Which was my prediction, right? So essentially, yeah, exactly. Ring of Honor would be the Codyverse. That'd be it. So it makes sense that he'd be like, look, I've got Ring of Honor now. You have history there. You can do whatever you want. Maybe Cody comes back and he's like, okay, cool, you know? And with this, you know, the real life stuff that happened, you know, everything that sort of occurred between Tony Khan and Cody and being unable to find terms on the contract and so on and so forth. Maybe Tony Khan is like, Cody's like, they could transform this into an angle where, you know, Cody takes over Ring of Honor and makes it like the anti-AEW people, and it's like, oh, we've been at the, AEW wouldn't be here without us and that kind of stuff. It could be. But there's going to be discourse over whether or not this was all Pillmanized, right? Where Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes put on this whole charade and that this was just like one big angle. Which, look, my spidey senses tingle when I hear this kind of stuff happen, but I want to keep an open mind. My spidey senses were tingling with Cody Rhodes being a free agent and stuff, and like, this is bullshit. But then he ended up leaving, right? Nope, he's done. He's toast. But then I'm like, this comes back around and maybe my instincts were good. Maybe this is just a big work. A modern day Brian Pillman, Eric Bischoff thing, right? Just in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. But and it's plausible because of the fact that Tony Khan is such a wrestling fan and that he marks out for this kind of, like, he understands wrestling fans, he understands wrestling, he understands the business. Why wouldn't he want to have his own Brian Pillman moment? My reasoning tells me none of this was a work, that this was all legitimate. Okay? This, that Cody and Tony couldn't come to an agreement and Tony didn't renew the contract, but maybe Tony Khan had it in his back pocket and is like, well, if this deal with Ring of Honor falls, happens, and I can go back to Cody and bring him back on board. That seems plausible. Of course, none of this is done. We're speculating here. We're having a little fun. If you don't speculate in wrestling, you're missing the point. You're missing out 60% of the fun of it. But let's say it's a work. Let's just say it is. Let's just take a minute here. It takes away a lot. It will erode a lot of trust for AEW because all of their announcements were made through official channels. They involved partners and partnerships, brought in people who probably weren't involved, such as appointing Amanda Huber to, the community outreach stuff, all of that. That erodes a lot of trust. But what's even worse is if it's a work and they worked the locker room. You never want to work the locker room, because that creates a very untenable atmosphere in the background. Because then at that point, that creates suspicion, paranoia, mistrust. That develops an entirely different relationship with your talent, because now your talent has something tangible to say, I don't know if I trust you, boss, Booker man. I don't know if you're going to pay me. I don't know if you're going to tell me to take a hike when I'm going to come and ask you for anything. You're going to promise me something and then you're going to fuck me over. Like if Tony, honest to God, if Tony Khan did this, it was to pop himself, and it's extremely ill-advised. Extremely ill-advised. Because when Bischoff and Pillman did it back in the early 90s, there was just, the ragtag newsletter readers that were aware of it. Now, everyone knows it's a work. There's websites open and just discussing this shit all the time. There's Twitter, there's message boards. Everyone knows. If this is a work, it is bad. Again, like I said, my brain tells me, because of how they approached the departure of Cody and Brandy by talking about all the partners and so on and so forth, I feel like it's legitimate. And there might be some bridge mending with the ROH stuff. Maybe But I promise you, if it's a work, I hope Tony got a good pop out of it, because that's gonna do some irreparable damage. All right, let's start talking about the shows now. Let's get to it. On Rampage on Friday, look, is Rampage becoming less and less? Is it becoming less and less a destination viewing? Because I don't think it is anymore. I think you can miss Rampage, watch it the next day, grab some highlights, and it'll be fine. And I'm not calling it the B show, because there's too much star power still on those shows to be like, oh well, look, they're putting Horace Hogan versus huge erection on the main event. Like, that's a kiss of death. Like, if they start putting, no disrespect, if they start putting one of the guys from Bear Country versus I don't know, Nick Camarado in the main event of a Rampage, you're like, okay, we're done. This is we're good, kind of thing. So definitely not calling it the B show, but it does, and it's still a breeze. It's an easy breezy 1 hour of wrestling to watch. There's no nonsense, just stuff happening. Go. But I don't know, like, nothing happens where I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I saw this. And this week, Rampage was one of those where I'm like, Sammy Guevara and Andrade El Idolo, I thought it was a clunky match. I thought it was very off. Everything was off. Clunky is exactly the word I used, that I still use. So, okay. Wardlow defeated Nick Camarado. And again, like, Wardlow's great and all, but we also see him on Dynamite squishing fools. All right. I mean, Wardlow at this point, is like, he's in the midst of his push. We're good, but it's not like I'm tuning in to watch Wardlow powerbomb dudes. He's like a nice sprinkle. He's a good pop. He's a good reaction. It's fun. I like it. Well booked. But I'm not tuning into Rampage to watch it. Serena Deeb's 5-minute rookie challenge. I mean, it's fine. Don't get me wrong. Continuing to book. But I mean, these are not reasons for me to tune in and watch. It's not like I'm good. This is happening. It's good. It's a good angle. It's strong. Kayla Sparks, by the way, pulled a Rick Rude on Friday, appeared in the 5-minute challenge with Serena Deeb on Rampage on Friday night, and earlier in the evening popped up on the Kiss Cam with Los Lotharios on WWE SmackDown on the same night. Good for you, Kayla. And we had a contract signing. I'm like, and honestly, Jesus Christ, all women wrestlers that I love in this match, in this setup here. Thunder Rosa, Jamie Hayter, Britt Baker, all fantastic, but you could not have had a more cookie cutter, down to basics, unsurprising, low effort, minimal energy contract signing than that. Exactly the type of contract signing I do not like. That's the prototype right there. That's one that I can point to and like, this is it. And I've seen dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of those. Brings nothing to the table, brought nothing to the feud. I talked about this on the Rampage, not the Rampage, but the Revolution prediction show. Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker is a cold match going into the pay-per-view. Not that the women are not talented, not that I don't like the women. The match is cold. Hasn't been heated up, hasn't been given the time of day, hasn't had that moment where you're excited to see this match. And it's insane to me. Because Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker is the rematch everyone wanted since March 2021. It is the rematch everyone wanted to see. This should have been the easiest to set on fire. Why does it feel cold? I'm fully expecting them to turn up at the pay-per-view and deliver a great match. That's not my point. Why wasn't the build thrilling and exciting? Why has it felt flat? I can tell you why. Because they focused on other things. They literally have in their hands their biggest women's match. They're doing it. They're delivering it. They're making it happen this weekend. It is the biggest women's match that AEW has in their hands right now. WWE's biggest match, they have the women. They're not pulling it. They're not doing it at WrestleMania. It's Becky and Ronda, but they're not doing it. AEW have it. They're doing it. They've been planting seeds for it for months. Why does the match feel cold? Because it hasn't been hyped. Because it hasn't been given the time of day. It hasn't been given prominent positions. And it's like I keep telling y'all so time and time again, if you don't make something feel important in wrestling, people won't care for it. Now, you can bank on audience excitement as much as you like, but you as a booker have to feed it. You have to make moments where people will get excited about it. The build here was not good. Will Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker have a good match at Revolution? Absolutely. But this match is cold, boys and girls. Cold. And Orange Cassidy qualified to be in the Face of the Revolution match, defeating Anthony Bowens, which I was kind of surprised because the whole layout of... I felt the layout of the Face of the Revolution match included a lot of, lower mid-card guys, not lower card, but lower mid-card guys that, we're putting you here. Oh, here's Keith Lee, Powerhouse Hobbs getting some shine, Ricky Starks getting some shine. I'm like, this is dope. I like it. I really thought Anthony Bowens was going to go over here. It's fine. Orange Cassidy, I like Orange Cassidy. It's not a problem. Okay. Let's move over to Dynamite this week. After the announcement, of course, we got a match 20 years in the making, the return. But I mean, it's true. I mean, Bryan Danielson and Christopher Daniels, they wrestled on the first, they main evented the first Ring of Honor show. And they never wrestled again. So let's do it. What a fucking great match this was. This was right on par, right up my alley. Like, you want to talk about a wrestling match that was that Tony Khan sort of looked at it and said, how could we make this so that Warren Hayes likes it? There you go, right here. I fucking liked it. And it was amazing. Daniels even pulls out an Arabian moonsault. And he was like, and he did it. It's like, I'm 51 and I just did it. It's like fantastic stuff. Danielson he's being his new heelish self and just being so fantastic on it. Daniels, that's a sit out iconoclasm. Danielson just pulverizes Daniels throughout the match with chops and kicks, some great strike exchanges. The top rope Hurricane Rana that Danielson reverses out of, just goes shoving Daniels, and I've got Daniels and Danielson in the shoving Daniels away was just brutal. brilliant stuff. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And it seemed a little, oh, well, he just pushed him. But, you know, I was chatting a little bit about it with Floman in the Discord earlier today. Danielson had to push him away with enough strength so that Daniels wouldn't land on his head. So there's still like a lot of trust in that move. It was brilliant. Just fantastic stuff. Daniels goes for the best moonsault ever. And as he's landing, Danielson wraps him up, chokes him out. He's out of it. They did the Code of Honor, right? Which is interesting because Christopher Daniels, his thing was that he didn't care about the Code of Honor. He wouldn't shake people's hands. But he did it with Danielson at first. And then Danielson at the end is like, you know, at the end of the match, we shake a dude's hand. And then he's shaking, over, he's shaking the hand of Daniels, who's prone and dead. Then he starts stomping his head and it's like, fantastic fucking heel stuff. Bryan Danielson is so good at everything he does. Just fantastic. One of the greatest North American wrestler of all time. The guy can do it all. Then Mox comes out, hits a killer promo. Oh, and the teases for this match. Teasing blood, violence. Ah! I'm so excited for this match. I want to say hello to Joe Poulin Jr. and Certified Wrestling Podcast. Welcome to the chat. You both. Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. I don't know why they call it the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. They didn't do the suits. There's no Joker, but they didn't do it the last time either. The last time they did one. They didn't do the suits. They didn't do the Joker thing. It was literally a Royal Rumble, but for tag teams. Big surprise. Darius Martin is back. Top Flight back together. That was a wonderful, beautiful surprise. Again, as I do with Battle Royals, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this, and a lot of it is not necessary to actually break down. But this all boiled down to having, let's see here. No. Having FTR, actually having three men left in the ring, right? Matt Jackson, Dax Harwood, and Darius Martin, right? And Darius Martin, this whole ending, okay, the whole ending to this match was entirely dependent on the crowd being excited to see Darius Martin back, remembering who this guy is, because he got injured very early on in Top Flight's history when they got signed and so on and so forth. And yes, Top Flight is signed. It's a meme. Thank you. But very, very early on, you really ran a risk of no one remembering who Darius Martin was, but no, people did, and they were super excited to see him. So that carried all the way to the end, where people were stoked. They were like, yes, he's still here, and excited about it. Hell of a gamble, but really paid off. And that's another thing that's great about AEW audiences, right? Is that they remember. They remember people. You know why? Because you're as opposed to the other guys, you're compelled, you're rewarded to remember things, to remember stuff happening in matches and so on and so forth. So, So Darius Martin eliminates Nick Jackson. He and Matt have a really dramatic exchange around the ropes and on the apron. Matt does a low blow, followed by a super kick. And the Young Bucks are going to be the third team at the tag team three-way match at Revolution against Red Dragon and champions Dino 210. Now the thing here is, this was the only outcome. It was the only outcome. I've heard a lot of people, like, Pride and Powerful might win. It's like, the Young Bucks are winning. It was Young Bucks and Red Dragon. They were setting up stories. They were setting it up. It was clear as day. Again, it's not. I don't mind when things are predictable. It doesn't bother me especially when the journey is fun. But I'm like, I don't know who sincerely thought that this was going to be anything else than the Young Bucks. Anyway. Chris Jericho cuts a quick promo. He talks about Eddie Kingston and so on. And, he finally has a chance to win the big one. And he says if you can't win it, and he won't, he'll look at his, his pathetic face or whatever, pathetic ass, I think he said. And he'll tell him to GFY. He went and said GFY again, trying to get that shit over. But then the story here is that Santana and Ortiz walk up. Jericho offers up a fist bump and they do so. So we're cool. Yeah, we're cool. So I'm like, really? So I don't know if this is meant to be like some kind of swerve this weekend, or if this is really Santana and Ortiz realigning themselves with Jericho. If so, I'm a little disappointed, especially realigning themselves with someone who's trying to get GFY over. Come on now. CM Punk comes to the ring. He's got a white t-shirt. You know what's happening. Am I the bad guy? He asks. He believes nobody thinks that they're the bad guy in their own story, right? And up until a week ago, after that promo, he was certain that MJF was the bad guy. And he says what Max did last week requires courage. He spoke about deep things, important things, but CM Punk is like, I can't but not feel that I'm getting gaslit right here. He doesn't think Max is being sincere. So he calls out MJF, who comes out. Punk references all the bad things that he himself has done in the past. He offers Max a handshake, and MJF hugs him. Doesn't shake the hand, hugs him. And it's funny because CM Punk is like, okay, he's sort of taken aback and hugs him and, lets the moment happen. And then MJF just kicks him right in the nuts, right in the balls. And he takes his shirt off, and he had a t-shirt underneath, and he had the picture printed on it. It's a heat seeker? Sean Spears, Wardlow come out. They have the ring. They have the dog collar. They have all this shit. Anyways, MJF starts blasting. He starts blasting CM Punk right in the head with the diamond ring. Punk blades, and he blades like a stuck pig. But I mean, you know how, like, legitimately, it's gurgling out of his forehead. I'm like, my God! And they tie him up by the neck. And MJF, he marks his t-shirt, the handprint, bloody handprint over the picture. What a fucking great look! People try to come to CM Punk's aid, but FTR is there and cutting everyone off. It's just awesome. It's just awesome. They're hanging CM Punk over the ropes and he's choking. I loved this so much. Of course we knew MJF was doing mind games, that he was going to turn. Of course we did. Was he going to do it at the match? You sort of look at it. Should he have done it in the match? Should he have done it? I think it has more impact for the match on Sunday to have him do it now, so that when CM Punk comes to the match, he just wants to kill this kid. Figuratively speaking, of course. But he just, at this point, like, there's no way in hell that CM Punk doesn't want to absolutely dismantle MJF at this point. Got fucked with, he got fucked with, emotional manipulation. MJF is just a master plan. We all saw it coming, but it doesn't matter. It was great. And the angle after, CM Punk bleeding buckets, being hung over the top rope, choking, the heel talking shit. Mwah. The past 2 weeks of this feud have been memorable, spectacular stuff. I'm on the record, didn't care for a lot of what they did. Thought there was too much talk, too much witty repartee, too many Rosie O'Donnell references between week after week. I'm like, okay, it's all too cute. Leads up to this. Something surprising, something violent, because this is what it's supposed to be. They're putting over the dog collar match as the most violent shit in wrestling. I can buy it after what happened. Absolutely. I'm 100% convinced that they're going to murder each other. I'm at a point, and good for them, I'm at a point where I'm excited for this match, despite the fact that I didn't want it. I'm on the record. I didn't want this match. I wanted MJF to win, and then we all move on. But now that we're getting it, I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. I'm excited for it. Super excited for it. Sometimes I don't need weeks and weeks and weeks of promo battles. Give me angles, in-ring stuff. That's where it matters. I don't care about a lot of the rest. What else we got? Mercedes Martinez and Thunder Rosa defeated Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. It was felt a little off. Thunder Rosa pins the champ in this match. I don't know how significant that is because I don't know AEW's booking patterns in this regard. Like if I'm WWE, I'm like, okay, well, Britt's retaining. We'll see. I'm still excited for Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker, don't get me wrong. But look, Eddie Kingston sold me a ticket last week. Over the past couple of weeks, they built MJF and CM Punk to a point where I'm like, even if I didn't want the match, I'm cool with it now because it's going to be great. Where's that level of excitement for two star players of your company? Thunder Rosa, who is one of my favorite wrestlers. Britt Baker, who was absolutely fantastic. Why am I not that excited? I'm looking forward towards the match. As a professional wrestling fan who observes the business and follows AEW and and loves both of these wrestlers who are going to be in this match, you know, it's just a natural progression, but I feel I could be more invested in it. Fucking contract signings bullshit. Was it the main event after? Yes. No, we got Wardlow squashing Cesar Bononi, and then Wardlow being this close to fucking tearing Sean Spears' head off. And the main event, which was Adam Cole and Red Dragon versus Hangman Adam Page, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver. You know what I liked about this match? Good old-fashioned Road to New Japan Trios match. That's what that was. You got the champ and the challenger in this match with their allies, and everyone's trade and the champion and the challenger, they trade some reps just to wet your whistle, just to get you going, just to be, oh, this is going to be good. And you know what? With what I saw between Page and Cole in this match, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I'm excited. That was perfect. Perfect. Not, just enough confrontation between the two, enough fighting. It was good. I enjoyed it. And then after the match, the heels attack Adam Page. They tie him up with some duct tape, and they beat up Silver and Reynolds in front of him. Adam Cole and Red Dragon won, by the way. And wasn't it really cool, the Kyle O'Reilly, John Silver confrontation? Weren't they cool? Isn't that something we'd like to see a little more of? Isn't that something that we'd like to that we'd like to grab onto? And you know what? That's what a good New Japan Trios Road 2 match does as well. Gets you excited for the other stuff that can be put on the undercard. Very effective. I like the main event. Leaves a lot of open things. A good go-home show. I'm excited for Revolution this weekend. If you want my full thoughts, right here on the channel or on my podcast page, wherever you're listening to it, the Revolution is right there. The Revolution preview show is right there with the boys from Between Two Beards. Check it out. It's really good. It was a fun one. I'm very proud of it. Let's point and laugh at Control Your Narrative. Like this whole thing. Okay, so I was directed to their Facebook. No, not their Facebook, their Instagram. Because I was like, what is on this card? And someone told me that you can find it on their Instagram. Because they have a show this weekend in Florida. I think it's being taped. There was so much stuff that happened this week. But between, the wrestler announcements and the TV deal, trust me, we're going to talk about the TV deal. And everything that Control Your Narrative has been doing feels like a parody. It feels like a joke. It's so on the nose, and it sounds like everything I read from their copy, from their website, it reads like it reads like a CPAC organization, a CPAC convention. So I go on, I go to check out, okay, what's on the card, and I'm like, look, I try to go into this with as clear a mind as possible, as objective as mind as possible. They're making it extremely difficult. Austin Aries has been making it very difficult to just stay as objective as possible. But then I read the stuff. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. So, as you probably have heard, Control Your Narrative, right, is the promotion set up by EC3 and Adam Shear, the Titan Adam Shear, as a response to, I guess, not being signed anywhere. Or wanting to be in control of their narrative, right? Which was something very cool that EC3 had done once he was released from WWE, but it just got weird. And then it got in, I think they got into their own heads on a lot of stuff. And it turns out that they don't talk about wrestling matches, they talk about fights. This is inspired by Fight Club. So I don't know what to expect, but I swear that this is going to be a Raw Underground setup. I am convinced. I don't know why. This is how I'm feeling it. Anyway. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I'm going to watch their first broadcast, whatever it is. I'm going to watch it because I have to see for my own eyes before striking any type of judgment. And I think it's fair for anyone to do that. Right now, everything is so over the top and ridiculous. I think it's okay to point and laugh because it is very funny what I'm seeing right now. Doesn't mean the show's going to be shit. Doesn't mean that, it's going to be garbage. I don't know. I haven't seen the show yet. But from what I'm seeing right now, this is funny as hell. So here are the scheduled fights. Scheduled fights for this weekend's Control Your Narrative show in Orlando, Florida at Tin Roof at Icon Park. We get Josh Woods, ROH Pure Champion Josh Woods, versus the outspoken Austin Aries. This is his thing now. That's the outspoken Austin Aries. Now what's great is that all of these matches come with a little blurb. Allow me to read these blurbs to you verbatim. What happens when a man seeks redemption and is met with ire and scorn? What is the hashtag mental health of someone hashtag canceled for stating their hashtag opinion, whether right or wrong? What happens when Woods hashtag pure potential meets a hashtag complex cast? Why are you hashtagging all this shit? Why are you hashtagging pure? Why are you hashtagging pure? I can't believe that. So many hashtags. And I'm like, who is perusing? Look, seriously, who is going through the mental health hashtag on Instagram and scrolling through it and then sees the big wrestling show and they're like, what the fuck is this? Like, who is going through the mental health hashtag and is going like, oh yeah, I want to know what happens to the mental health of someone hashtag canceled. What the fuck is this? The next match. Damo, former Killian Dane, for those of you keeping score at home, versus handsome Jamie Stanley. Jamie Stanley. I gotta try. I'm gonna try something else here. Jamie Stanley is a preening microcosm of a culture obsessed with the superficial. Damo is the personification of coiled rage, fueled to fight. What will the result be when the hashtag American jawline is met by a heavy Irish fist? He is the preening microcosm. What the fuck? Enough with the thesaurus! Come on, Jesus! This is terrible copy! What is a preening microcosm? That makes no sense! You're writing copy for a wrestling show, not poetry. Main event. The Righteous versus EC3 and the Titan, Adam Scherr. 2/3 of the hashtag The Righteous. Bateman is the twisted mind, and William is the disgusting body of a unit that doesn't seek hashtag fame. They seek hashtag infamy. Christ, this is corny. Kenan, hashtag essential character. Take another step to see a vision through. Can Scherr continue his journey to hashtag rise above his past and become the hashtag Titan he is supposed to be? This and more. Much more. So much more. And I am not even kidding. That is exactly how that shit wraps up. Why are they hashtagging all these words? Why are they hashtagging all of this? Why hashtag rise? And for guys who hate social media so much, they sure want to get those hashtags out there. This is what boggles my mind. These are all dudes who are like, no, social media sucks, all right, keyboard warriors, blah, 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 blah. And here they are, going like, hashtag this bullshit and hashtag. That was hilarious. But I think what broke me, I think what teetered me towards the side of, okay, this is absolutely preposterous. This is just, I cannot wait to see this, to see how this all turns out. EC3 was given interviews and was, telling people that he got a TV deal secured. We've got a television deal. I'm like, okay. A lot of people were thinking was what's it called? A Rumble TV, right? Rumble. It was like, okay, well that's, it's not like, NBC or CBS or whatever, but it's not even, I don't know, what's a competitor to TBS. But still, you're like, okay, it's dope. So we get news. There's a press release, announcing the TV deal. And no one in the business, in any type of business, can take this type of fucking press release seriously. And I'm not kidding. Trust me, guys. This is part of what I do for a living. Like, if people were telling me you got to write this press release this way, I'm like, okay, I'm hitting the bricks. This is ridiculous. From the propaganda desk of the essential character, this is how it starts. I'm like, all right, we're good. Pro Wrestling TV, which will launch in April, and hashtag Control Your Narrative have agreed to an exclusive agreement to bring wrestling's newest brand to its television home. And there's a grammatical error. They put it's IT''S where it should be ITS. So much for proofreading. But I guess, when you control your own narrative, you don't need proofreading, because proofreading means someone else is controlling your narrative. With Pro Wrestling TV, this is a quote, with Pro Wrestling TV, or PWTV, the way professional wrestling is consumed will change forever, states Control Your Narrative co-founder EC3. We are very excited to partner with PWTV to bring the stories, skills, and abilities of a distinct and driven group of talents to the wrestling world. In addition, that was the end quote. In addition to continuing to produce full-length cinematic wrestling features, Control Your Narrative and PWTV will bring a unique perspective of presenting and distributing wrestling to the fans in the form of a seasonal television approach. Okay. Each episode will build the stories of the wrestlers, their conflicts, and their journeys, culminating each season with a live event special. So, Lucha Underground. With the traditional wrestling format, While the traditional wrestling format will be represented, Control Your Narrative's television will be anything but the norm. It'll be anything but the norm. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, anything but the norm. That could be, I'm so used to normal TV. I'm stoked. In addition to its televised show and specials, CYN is planning a live tour to provide talent an opportunity to perform and fans to see them live. Quote, the wrestling will be real. The stories will be real. We want to put the power back in the hands of wrestlers and create a place they can make a living, says Sin co-founder Adam Scher. Which is honestly, that's noble. And I can get behind that. But that's what the independents are there for. He's not like breaking new ground. It's like, just don't work for Vince. Don't work for Tony Khan. Work the indies and do what you want. The opportunity to create and collaborate with PWTV and the performers under their umbrella opens up a world of possibilities, says EC3. To control your narrative is to tell your story with PWTV as our partner. Those stories can be told, excuse me. Pro Wrestling TV will debut in April with a linear channel and on-demand streaming app provided as an ad-supported service to viewers worldwide. As it stands right now, Pro Wrestling TV is an Instagram page and a Twitter account. And there is literally nothing that you can glean. No information, nothing. And it presents itself as a streaming service for pro wrestling. Now, is this going to be available on cable packages? I do not understand what this Pro Wrestling TV thing is. I have no idea what it is. And it's not as if we don't already have streaming services for pro wrestling matches that, IWTV is exactly that. IWTV is a title match and high spots. There's a ton of them. What will Pro Wrestling TV bring to the table that isn't already there? And the only thing they can do is be an actual television network, which they probably aren't. Because you have to do filings, you have to get permits, it's a streaming service. It's not a TV deal. It's a streaming service. So don't call it a television deal. It's not TV. And that's hilarious to me that they're going around saying, yes, well, our television, it's not TV. Your so-called network doesn't even exist. It's launching in April. Okay. So launching your thing on an unproven commodity and you're making some kind of big deal out of it. It's like, this is our exclusive partner. It's like, there's no big deal to be made here. If they had come to an agreement with Access TV, then you put that on. You're like, holy shit, okay. Now it's just like, oh, you guys are really, okay, so you are controlling your narrative. Cool. Because you're going out there saying what we're doing is big time shit. But when you scrape through the narrative and you get down to the facts, you're like, this is basic indie stuff. And they're starting it off with they're starting up their startup with another startup. And I don't think that's good news. I don't. Each episode will build the stories and wrestlers and conflicts, and culminating each series with a live event special. So basically what I'm understanding is they're going to be doing cinematic stuff. They're going to continue the grand tradition of pandemic wrestling, cinematic wrestling. They're going to continue that, creating episodes of scripted television to lead us into a live event, which will bring the conclusion in front of a live crowd. I don't hate the idea. I think the execution is going to be garbage. I really do. I don't. Who's the producers? Who's the team that's going to be producing these shows? These episodes. Who's going to be putting it together? Can't be just a couple of people running around with GoPros. Not if you want it to be taken seriously. I think, look, I've been around wrestling long enough. Been around wrestling long enough to know that promoters gotta promote. And this is some promoter top level, god tier, tasty, sweet promoter bullshit. Beautiful. I have no problems with it. This is what they gotta do. Promote it. It's old school. They think they're going to do things differently, but they're doing they're doing Wrestling Promoter 101 right now. I love it. What I don't love is again, I just want to see how all this plays out. But Austin Aries on Twitter this week hinting at the fact that he's going to use speaking out in one of his angles. That's a lot of bullshit to me. Because then it's no longer fantasy. It's no longer fantasy. It becomes extremely real and becomes extremely problematic. But, hang on. Don't want to jump the gun. I want to see what this is going to what's going to happen here. And trust me, I'm going to watch this. I'm actually considering doing a live reaction for this. Well, we're going to have a good time on the first showing, on the first taping of Control Your Narrative. We're going to have ourselves a grand old time. And I'm going to keep as open to mind as possible. So, hey, we'll see what happens. And the rant room, of course, you've all saw, but that's ridiculous. What was the thing? If you buy a VIP ticket, like for $100, something like that, you can sit in a room and scream at your least favorite wrestler for 3 minutes without any consequence. Something like that, right? Who would want to pay $100 to do that? That's some psychopathic bullshit right there. That's encouraging some psychopathic bullshit behavior. I don't know who'd do that. Here's $100 so I can go scream for 3 minutes at Austin Aries, scream at him that he's short. He's going to lose his mind. I don't want to do the rant room. I don't want to talk to these people. I don't, it's stupid. But you know, they're doing the rant room for one of two reasons. A theory. A game theory. No, a theory. An Austin theory. No, a theory. They're doing this for one of two reasons. One of them, my first theory is they're going to use this as proof that all the keyboard warriors don't have the guts to come to our face and say what they want to say. They hide behind their keyboards. And when we give them an opportunity to do it, well, they chicken out because they're a bunch of keyboard warriors, a bunch of nerds living in their mom's basement. You know, all of those fucking tired tropes from 2007 that these guys think they're so cool when they use. And they're so fresh. Oh, it cuts deep. Wouldn't want to pay $100 to do it. Keyboard warrior or not. Paying $100 to do it? You think I'm crazy? No, I'll keep doing it from behind my computer. I'll keep doing it on my podcast. That's fine. Because it doesn't cost me a dime to do it. I'm not going to pay $100 to go sit there. Jesus Christ, what are you talking about? That's my first theory. They're going to use this after. The second thing, and this is what I even tweeted about this. I'm like, look, if anyone wants to do the rent room, make sure you read the terms and conditions really, really well, because I think this is a way for them to get some footage of people screaming at them, of being angry, that they can use then in their promo packages moving forward. We are the most hated wrestlers, no one likes us, we've been canceled, blah, 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 blah. All that bullshit. For real, though. Kind of like when WWE said, when you go to the Thunderdome, they can use your image whenever they want, and there'll be people's faces that were on the Thunderdome that are going to be in 2K. I'm convinced, 100% convinced that there's going to be people from the Thunderdome that are going to be in the Thunderdome that's going to be in WWE 2K 22, 23, whatever it is, 22. I'm sure. So it's just like, read the fine print if you want to do and that's another reason why I don't want to do it. Because I'm convinced they're going to be recording. I'm convinced that there's a proviso here that it's like, hey, we can use your image in perpetuity. And I'm like, no, fuck you. Absolutely not. I'm convinced they're doing it for either one of those two reasons. Plus, of course, making $100 a pop off of people who don't know any better. I'm legitimately excited to see how this goes, because, I have apprehensions, but I'm going to try and keep an open mind, but holy hell. Anyway, that was the weekly wrestling inspection. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, I want to thank you for joining me this evening at this live recording once again of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. Hey, if you haven't already and you enjoyed it and you've been around this much, click the like button. Let's do it. Let's get this out there. I really appreciate it. Tons and tons and tons. So much. And I appreciate everyone who hung out here this evening, who popped in, popped out, came back in. I always appreciate it a great deal. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, hey, consider a like, consider a subscription, consider subscribing to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show as well. I mean, I always like to think that the subscriptions are earned. Did I earn your subscription? That'd be nice if it's your first time here, and it'd be nice to see you again sometime. So thank you all again so very, very, very much for joining me this evening. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great weekend. And members, don't forget, tomorrow, 7 p.m., members only stream. We're going to be talking probably a little more about AEW Revolution, because that's the big thing happening this weekend. So have a great time, everyone. We'll see you next time.